From the Weather NorCal Command Center, this is your Evening Update.
Meats and Grocery is much more than a grocery store. We carry a full line of quality meats, local and organic vegetables, and a large variety of fish, Green Mountain Smart Control pellet grills, and a full deli case of sandwiches and side dishes.
Hello everyone, Chief Meteorologist Mike Krueger here, Weather NorCal. Hope you had yourselves a great day. As we go into the evening here, we're going to be talking about the potential for more cold mornings with areas of frost as well. There is a slight warming trend. Despite some of these cold mornings, the daytime highs are getting rather warm. In fact, we're talking upper 60s, maybe even around 70 for some of the warmer spots in the Sacramento Valley. Now, we also have gusty north winds off and on. They're probably going to be picking back up again here early tomorrow morning and may even linger on into your Thursday as well. Now, chances for rain, not looking so great. Snow in parts of the mountains, also not looking so great, but there are better chances there. However, that being said, should we see any snow, it'll probably be on the light side. We'll get into that a little bit later. Let's start with Krueger's Quickcast for your Tuesday, January 21st. And we're going to start off with your temperatures for tonight. Now, what you'll notice is temperatures are not quite as cold in the valley. Why? Because the winds are expected to pick up. Now, honestly, I think we may be back closer to the low 30s for places like Chico again, because typically we get sheltered by these winds that do tend to develop here. So it probably won't be as much frost for some of us in the valley. However, some wind-sheltered areas in the valley could still see some of that frost. Meanwhile, teens and 20s for the higher elevations, especially to the north and east. Mid to upper 20s, Trinity County. Mid to upper 30s for the inland areas. And those mid to upper 30s will also be the case out along the coast. So yeah, another cold night pretty much any way you look at it. Now out the door tomorrow morning, there's what it looks like. Temperature about 41 degrees in the valley by 8 a.m. We're still looking at mainly sunny skies though, but once again, still quite cold even through the early morning hours, especially for the higher elevations. The satellite image is still showing a lot of activity out there, but the problem is we still have high pressure in place. This area of low pressure is just going to kind of wobble around off towards south and west, and eventually just kind of get caught up in the flow and fizzle out. This right here is all just butting up against the ridge of high pressure. We're starting to kind of see more of that arc in the clouds, and that's the high pressure. That's going to be the dominant feature and build even stronger over the next few days. So the winds tomorrow morning, you see how we're seeing mainly north and west side of the valley, not quite as bad for places like Chico, for example. And as we go into the afternoon, we're still looking at some pretty strong winds, continuing even into Wednesday night. Now you'll notice the winds are strongest for the northwest side of the valley and eastern foothills. Otherwise, the winds aren't going to be that strong anywhere else throughout the day tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, we do expect mostly sunny skies. Look at the highs. Look at the highs. We're close to, if not right around 70 for places like Redding and Cottonwood, maybe even Red Bluff. Otherwise, around 67 for Corning and Chico. And in the mountains, we're warming up a little bit as well, but mainly in the upper 40s to low 50s, and looks like upper 50s to about 60 as we take you out along the coast. All right, so looking at that 7-day outlook for the valley, quite warm for your Wednesday and Thursday. Temperatures dropping. Now we do have some Arctic air, or an influence of some Arctic air moving southward. That's why we're seeing those temperatures drop in the mid to upper 50s that is, as we take into the weekend. And taking a look at the coast, inland, and for Trinity County, also seeing that dip in those temperatures here as we take into the weekend as well, and even much cooler for the northern mountains and eastern mountains as well. You can see by Saturday, places like Alturas may struggle to get above freezing. And you'll also notice I've included one area that could see a chance for some snow showers, and that would be around, say, Lassen and Plumas counties. I think that'll be the best place chances for snow, but even then it would be light should we even see that. Meanwhile, it of course starts to warm back up again as we do go into early next week. All right, that's a look at Krueger's Quickcast. Hope you had yourselves a great night. And of course, we're going to, go into a lot more detail here in our deeper dive forecast here. Before we get to that, though, let's remind you that there is a free Weather NorCal 24-hour streaming channel. You can watch on your smart TV. Now, if you have a smart TV in general, it's just connected to the internet, say you have a Samsung or an LG, whatever, you have usually a YouTube app on your smart TV. All you have to do is go to the Weather NorCal YouTube page, and you're watching the 24-hour streaming channel right there. Also, Fire Stick and Roku. You just search for those apps there and you're good to go. Just search for Weather NorCal. So check it out. 24-hour streaming channel free for your access on Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, YouTube, weathernorcal.com. From the free Weather NorCal app, you can watch it there as well. So again, we look at the big arc in the clouds right here. That's the ridge of high pressure that will be building over the next couple of days. And as it does that, we're looking at warmer temperatures and, of course, dry conditions. There are the winds I was mentioning here for tomorrow. There's tomorrow around noon, still those gusty winds, still pretty gusty even as we go into Thursday morning. Thursday midday, they're starting to die down. Then by Thursday evening, Thursday night, they're back down to mainly below 10 miles per hour. So again, these off and on winds will continue. So let's take a look at the bigger picture here. You see the arc in the clouds I was talking about. Here's the ridge. Now it's building, it's getting stronger. This is going to give us the warmer temperatures here for your Wednesday. This is when we could see quite possibly 70 degrees for some of us in the valley here for Wednesday and possibly even into Thursday. Okay, so remember I was talking about that area of low pressure. It just kind of gets caught up in the flow and then it just fizzles out. Meanwhile, we're watching some Arctic air. Now, most of the Arctic air is over here, but that is kind of pooling down and spilling over into Northern California. So this is when we start to see the temperatures drop. But notice the snow that we're seeing here. You see how there's not a lot of it? That's because this system does not have a lot of moisture to work with. Look what happens as it dives down to the south. This model was a little bit more aggressive earlier today, bringing it a little bit more to the west. But now, I mean, even the chances in Lassen and Plumas counties aren't looking all that great. Now, I will say this. The European forecast model, which has been looking a lot like this, is now showing and getting more aggressive in bringing that snow westward and maybe even some rain for places like Chico. So we're still seeing some inconsistencies in those longer range forecast models. And so the confidence for Saturday's chances for rain and snow are still not that high. But as of right now, I'm going to stick with Lassen and Plumas counties seeing the best chance for snow flurries, which will still be light. But anything outside of that will most likely, at this point, remain dry. It's a stay tuned type of forecast. Then, as that moves down to the south and east, you got low pressure to our south and east, high pressure to our north and west. The difference between the two, yeah, we're caught between the two, and we tend to see those winds pick up. So we'll see those gusty winds come Sunday and even into Monday. Now, looking at the Climate Prediction Center precipitation outlook, we're still in that drier than normal category. And remember, yesterday, there was green over Southern California. That's been taken out. Again, because we just don't have a lot of rain in the forecast. Let's take a closer look at that pocket of cooler air that's going to be kind of cooling down. There it is right here. There's that Arctic air. And then you see how the energy dips down to the south. Now, again, the main Arctic air is right here. But you see how it's kind of spilling over into parts of northern and central California. The positioning of this, the path of this cooler air in this storm system will depend and determine who sees snow and who doesn't. And, of course, rain in those lower elevations. You bring it a little bit more to the kind of in this direction, and now you're seeing better chances for places like even in the valley. But you bring it more from this direction, and now we may miss it. We'll have to wait and see. Again, this path has been kind of changing a little bit here over the last couple of days, and that's why the confidence in the forecast model hasn't been all that great. Then, of course, that coldest air moves off to the east. We're still seeing those gusty winds, but still some cooler air that will be in place, keeping those temperatures most likely below normal for this time of the year. All right, let's take a look at those wave heights, taking you into your Wednesday afternoon. You can see we're not seeing much change here from what we saw today. Let's take a look at Thursday. Wave heights are starting to increase a little bit here, but you have to head out pretty far into sea. Otherwise, it's not going to be changing that much. So here's a marine forecast for your Wednesday. Now, the winds will be from the north at 5 to 10 knots, waves from the north at 1 foot at 5 seconds, and from the west at 5 feet at about 13 seconds. Your high tide is at 5:46 tomorrow morning at 7 feet, and your low tide just before 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon at 1.8 feet. And there's your sunrise and your sunset for tomorrow. All right, here's what it looks like tonight. Again, not as cold as it was this morning, but I do expect at least mid-30s, maybe a little bit colder in some spots, maybe even some upper 30s. Meanwhile, teens and 20s for Siskiyou, Modoc, and the Eastern Mountains in general. Mid to upper 20s, Trinity County. Upper 30s for the inland areas. It looks like those mid to upper 30s for the coast. Let's take a look at your Trinity County neighborhood forecast for your Wednesday. Temperatures around 60. We're not going to see much variance in that, right? And then we take you up to the North Coast with 61 for Blue Lake, 65 in Alder Point, 64 in Garberville. Still looking at those dry conditions for the next 7 days. 64 degrees in Orleans, 61 for Hoopa, 63 in Willow Creek, and there's Gas Key with a high of about 63 degrees. Your Siskiyou County neighborhood forecast, you've got those temperatures mainly in the 50s, although places like Weed about 49, 50 in Fort Jones, and of course a bit cooler up in some of those higher elevations off to the north and to the east. Of course, still dry even from Mount Shasta for the next 7 days. Here's your Modoc County neighborhood forecast, mainly in the 40s, although it looks like 80 and about 51. Now look at that 7-day outlook. We're going to see some very cold overnight lows as that Arctic influenced air moves in. We're looking at low 30s for your daytime high on Saturday, and then kind of ticking back upward into the 40s by early next week. Eastern mountains, what you'll notice, I put that chance for a snow flurry on Saturday. Now I'm going to say this, I would say probably maybe Fall River Mills, Chester, eastward, maybe has that best chance for a snow flurry on Saturday. Okay, places like Bernie, southward to the west, most likely looking at dry conditions. And even that's not guaranteed should we see any of that, because again, it's a fairly moisture-starved system. Meanwhile, we take out of the Valley neighborhood forecast brought to you by Walgamuth Painting. Look at these temperatures. These are not typos, folks. We're talking upper 60s. 67 in Corning, 66 for Durham, and Pasquinta, a high of 69 degrees. 69, maybe some of us touching even 70 degrees for tomorrow, basically the north end of the valley. Look for a high of 68 for Red Bluff, but notice the temperatures dropping again. Friday we're down to 62, and then back down to the mid to upper 50s by Saturday, Sunday. But then we start to see those temperatures begin to tick back up as we go into early next week. Looking at that 7-day outlook for Redding, upper 60s, maybe even around 70, especially for tomorrow. Mid 60s Friday, mid to upper 50s over the weekend. Low 60s return by early next week. That's your evening update. I'll see you again tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. and live on Coffee with Krueger at 7 a.m. Have a great night.
Wind River Resort and Casino, we like to celebrate life's little moments. Oh, and the big ones too. Because around here, when you're completely in the moment, that's when the magic happens. Come in and find your moment at Wind River Resort and Casino.